You're back. Right, we're chatting to Darryn van Berg, the visionary MD, and Bronwyn van Berg, the creative director of Passion for Development, about this thing called gamification. And I'm starting to understand it, and I'm starting to sort of warm to this a little bit here. Let's go back to where we were before the break. Darryn, how do you provide measurables? You've gone into a company, you've assessed their needs, you've started this project with them. How do you report back to the board, the MD, the CEO, whoever, and show them what progress has been made? Because they want to see progress.
Yeah. Jeremy, the first thing that we do is, like you said, we start off with the benchmark. So typically they'll say, we want you to do something. And my question is, and this is part of the strategy, well, what do you want your people to do? We want them to make more money. How much more money? In what way do you want them to make more money? And we start that thinking process before we start the actual rollout. Then we say to them, okay, you've got this great idea what you want.
Can I just stop you there?
Yes, go ahead.
Do you find, and this is, don't forget where you're going.
Okay.
Do you find that people actually know what they want out of their workforce? Or a lot of the time, are they not clear on what they're actually wanting to achieve?
It's the latter, Jeremy. What I experience is people want two things: more money and more motivated staff. But if you ask them to define that,
they don't know what it is.
They can't define it, which is why, in my experience, they don't know why the staff are demotivated or why they're not making more money.
Because, I mean, more money can be made in a load of different ways. It doesn't necessarily mean more turnover. It may mean more savings. Yes. Yeah, that's why I asked the question. Okay, right, we've established that.
And once we've established that with the client, we say to them, okay, so you want more, but what's it physically going to look like to you when it's done? We get them to create the post picture first, because otherwise, can you ever measure return on investment? You know, if someone's expecting $1 million and they get 900,000. 900,000 is not a bad return, but if you're expecting $1 million, it's not your $1 million. You know, or if you get 10 million, what the heck do we do to get 10 million? So then they want to sustain it, and it's not really sustainable. So that's the first thing we do. We sit with them and go, okay, let's get this picture. Once we have the picture, we continue in terms of, okay, well, who are the players? What do they look like? How do they interact with each other? And then we go into progression loops and feedback, because gamification is about feedback, friends, and fun. If you're not getting that, then really your strategy is going to start, you'll start dropping off. There will always be your 70-20-10 principle, where you're 20% on board, they're loving it. The 70 kind of get on, 10%, you know what? We're not interested. Yeah. And that's cool. You know, we're very comfortable with that. That's very much the expectation. Because once we have those measurables, then we start looking at, okay, how do we implement from here? So there's a very strong focus on planning, on the actual strategic planning. And a big thing to us is, what is your company strategy? What is it that you want to achieve? Because you've got your mission, vision, and values. Bring them. And tell us what you want us to do enhances your mission, vision, and values. Because if it doesn't enhance that, then
it's pointless.
Exactly. Why do you want us? Then you're just following the new fad, or the new name, or the latest word, and that in and of itself, I mean, you know, network marketing, for example, that was the big word a few years ago, and there's very little evidence as to the value of word of mouth application to network marketing.
When you sit down with a company, do you even get a word in edgeways with them?
Yeah, no, very true.
Very edgeways.
I like to bring in the creative ideas behind that. So
what is your background?
Well, my background is business, but I have a passion for education. That's I really, really desire to see massive change there. So that's where gamification becomes extremely valuable, and I'm finding extreme success in bringing that into a classroom environment.
Okay, now let's go back into the business environment out of the classroom environment, as important as that education is, because that's creating the future business of this country. But let's go into the immediate here. And into the business environment. Once you've got this, you've established the values and the strategies and all the rest of it, and you've got the whole thing in play. How do you keep, because I understand it will get boring over a while, because you've done that. Come boys, give me something new here. How do you keep refreshing all the time? And how do you keep focused on what the end picture is that's been painted by the people who are employing you?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we have come to discover is that the process needs to be driven by the player, or by your staff, or whomever you are creating the game for. And if you create the game where it is driven, it remains extremely progressive because people are consistently engaging and you are able to see what people are asking for, where they're driving towards. And I think it is a tricky thing. And in terms of staying focused, I think that's part of the designer's responsibility, is to take ownership of that and ensure that you're moving in that direction. But for me, it's if it's not driven by the staff or by whomever it is, it will soon fizzle out. So if you're hearing what they're asking for and where the trends are going, for us, you remain progressive in that way.
Is there not a problem though with staff wanting to do what they think management would want them to do, and thereby almost driving the game in a direction that doesn't really fulfill their needs? They're fulfilling what they think they need to fulfill. Or is that easy to see through with what you put in place?
You should do if you, I think there's certain mechanisms that you can put in place to follow the trends, and I don't think it's something to be afraid of. I think if you are driving the process and you've put specific mechanisms in place to follow those trends, if you're seeing things kind of veer off track, where the company's unhappy with that, I think, there are ways that you can push it back in line. But I think that there's a lot of creativity and a lot of informal trends and informal learning that you actually want to encourage, and you're wanting people to go off onto little rabbit trails, because that inherently will enhance. If you're allowing people to experiment a bit in terms of their own personal interests and desires, it can only enhance, because they're growing and they're learning. So,
while we were in the break, Darryn brought up an example that I thought was absolutely succinct, because it does go to the heart of something that we can all understand. And that's where I think I had problems coming to grips with this particular concept. Let's just go through that Swedish
Speed camera lottery.
That's it, yes.
Okay, so the speed camera lottery it's linked to a initiative that VW does called the Fun Theory.
Okay.
And what they did with the speed camera lottery was they took a typical road in Sweden, and where traffic, thousands of cars go up and down, and on average the speed limit was 34, 35 kilometers an hour, and the required speed limit was 30. So what they did was they put up this camera, like a typical speed camera, and it was called the speed camera lottery. It was a lot of color, and they took pictures of every car that drove backward and forward down this road. Mm-hmm. The cars that went over the speed limit would get their typical fine.
Okay.
The cars that went under the speed limit would be entered into a lottery.
Okay.
So what would happen now is once a month, somebody in the lottery would win the fines paid out by the people who sped. Yeah. So now your fine goes towards someone who wasn't speeding. But what they experienced was they dropped the speed rate from an average of 34, 35 kilometers per hour to about 25, 26 kilometers per hour in the space of 3 or 4 weeks. So that is a technique of gamification that altered speeding. It's just a very profound concept.
And that is literally just thinking out the box and going, how can we make something appealing that other people would go, oh, geez, 30 kilometers an hour. Why do I have to do 30 kilometers? Yeah.
And have you thought about the litter? There's another one with litter, if I may.
Yes.
So they had this recycle bin, and there was like 5 different holes with lights on the hole. Yeah. And what happened was you'd walk up and the light would go bling, and you'd have to throw your trash into that light. Ding. So you'd wait there for the light to come in and throw it in. They piloted over one night. They had about 100 people use that litter bin in one night. Around the corner was another litter bin where about 2 people used it. So you're altering the behavior of people by engaging them in something that becomes fun.
You see, I'm just thinking my way through this now, and I'm thinking of the traditional ways that, I'll use an example, retailers are engaging with their clients. And that to me has become boring. They've all got loyalty cards. All they do is clutter up my wallet. I get 10% off. Thanks, guys.
Exactly.
You've taken that from your supplier in any case.
Yeah.
How to engage with the consumer in a new way and make it exciting and make them actually want to go into your store.
Yes.
That's key, Jeremy, and we've often discussed this in terms of the loyalty programs. There's the differences are very slim, and like, what do I want as a consumer? Nothing really pulls me to that store on my way home, even though I've got that store's loyalty card, and this one's closer, and it's again, loyalty is a form of gamification, but it's designed for one type of gamification, and loyalty cards are on a loyalty rate. There's a lot of research around loyalty, and that's what's called mercenary loyalty. He with the better pay is the one I go to. So you might have a good loyalty card, but your friend might have a 10% better discount for the day. Mercenary loyalty. And what gamification helps with is establishing, okay, how do we build to family name, to a name in household name, loyalty. Like Mac did that so well. So many people will pay 25,000 Rand for a Mac when they get their same computer, if not better, non-Mac for 10 grand. Why do they buy the Mac? Because the Mac has moved away from loyalty into a much higher level of desire. I go to Mac because it's, and that's used very good in Canada.
Well, I suppose the thing is, it was the same as BlackBerry when they first came out and had the whole BBM.
Yes.
You had entire families getting BlackBerries so they could utilize that.
Yes.
It's the same with the Apple product, where there's this interconnectivity. You walk in, everything syncs with your family. Your child knows when your next appointment is.
Yes, absolutely.
So it is involved. So it's actually coming down to a family unit and an individual unit to engage people and make them. You're smiling.
Yeah, I love that.
You're not supposed to smile.
Sorry.
This is a serious television channel. We don't smile. Okay, now I'm starting to get this. I'm starting to get this. And if you're wanting more information, then the details of how to get hold of these guys are running on the screen right now. You can get hold of them and find out a bit more about this concept of gamification. Darryn, Bronwyn, thank you very much for sharing your time with us and your concept. I'm getting there.
Awesome.
I'm getting there. I may start some games on the show. You never know. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Jeremy.